Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Confession. Story 1. I'm a substitute teacher and smoke w33d, and in a country it's not legal. I do some substitute teaching and teaching assistant work. My DBS is perfect. I've never done bad, but I do smoke weed when I get home. I wouldn't around kids, but I smoke as soon as I get home. I smoke. I feel like a bad person. I'm fully aware I signed a contract where they can legally drug test me whenever they want. I could get one tomorrow and fail. That would be the end of my career, but I hate myself so wholeheartedly that the only thing to not make me depressed and eat tons. I lost weight in past 8 months, scared to gain it back. So I smoke it to let all my anxiety and depression away, but at great risk. I'm 23 and female, so I feel pressure to couple up and have a family, as well as my bio clock shouting at me to be this way too. But when I smoke weed every night? No. Story 2. I stole another kid's chocolate bar back in kindergarten. Like the title says, I stole this kid's chocolate bar from his lunchbox back in kindergarten. I am 23 now and I still feel bad about it. Sometimes I still randomly think about it and I had to let it out. Story 3. I have been taking food from shelves at my work and going into the break room with it without paying for it. So pretty self-explainable. I work at a grocery store and as a result always seem to get the munchies. Now normally when I have my 2 breaks, I work 8-hour shifts, so it's mandatory each courtesy clerk gets 2 breaks. I would occasionally buy myself a bag of chips or some hot deli food to crave my appetite, but with factors of me living independently now, with my brother and his BF in a apartment unit, it's kinda hard to scrape up enough money to pay for basic things such as snacks for when I go on break. And since I only reserve my money at work for lunch breaks, I have now begun taking items, chips, Lunchables, sodas, and casually walking to the break room with it without concealing it or hiding it in my clothing. No one seems to notice, and this has been going on for 2 years now, and I'm worried my karma will occur. Thoughts? Story 4. Guilty conscious for stealing from Target that is not in my town but 30 minutes away. I've stolen a couple times before growing up, but I stopped. I've done really well, but today I went to Target and stole a pack of razors and bought a desk. LP followed me outside and I believe got my license plate, then walked away and didn't talk to me or get any personal information. Now I'm feeling so much anxiety and guilt. I don't want to get in trouble. Also, if they send a letter based on my car address, it would go to my uncle, so I'm not sure what to do. Story 5. I caused my school to email all students' parents requesting their kids stop attempting to summon demons on school grounds. For context, young me was frankly an avid liar. I think kid me found pride in being able to convince my friends that some bullshit I made up was actually real. You know, bullshit such as a portal to an underground world opening up on the wheat field at midnight, and an alien species living there. Me owning the world's smallest cameras and holding out an empty hand before saying it's so small you probably can't even see it. Me having walked to Germany. Flashback to 2015 when I was in 5th grade. I have always loved spooky and paranormal stuff, so of course I ended up hearing about the entire Charlie challenge that began trending that year. Basically, all you needed was a paper and 2 pencils. Write down yes on opposing corners of the paper, no on the 2 remaining opposing corners, and then you place a pencil on the paper before balancing the other on top of it. The player would then ask something, and presumably receive a reply through the top pencil moving towards yes or no. Of course, I wanted to introduce my buddies to it. So we got a paper and 2 pencils, brought it out at recess, and set it up on a picnic table outdoors before one of us asked out loud, "Charlie, Charlie, are you here?" When nothing happened, my classmates began to question if this was just some more of my bullshit. A small sigh of disappointment left my body through my nostrils, and the air from that sigh managed to move the pencil over the paper. Everyone involved flipped their shit seeing the pencil move to one of the options. Of course we continued with this since it worked, and if the wind itself from us simply being outdoors didn't move the pencil, I myself would exhale out my nostrils to make it move. Freaking out every time it happened, no matter the question nor answer. Somehow, the teachers ended up finding out about this whole thing, and all of us ended up receiving emails home to our parents saying something along the lines of them requesting students stop attempting to summon demons on school grounds. This put an end to our fun since nobody wanted to get busted for that shit. Not the most exciting story ever, nor the best explained, but it's so funny to me thinking back on, and I must say I kinda do view it as an accomplishment. I'd love to try to find that email again one day. Story 6. I lied about having children so my neighbor stops playing piano late at night. I live in a small street of a big city, on the 4th floor. All my windows are on the street, it's a relatively calm street, some restaurant and a little circulation, but that's all. Since the beginning of summer we had a lot of new neighbors in the buildings across the street. One of them is a pianist and an accordion player, and plays very often, with his windows open. It didn't bother me at first, but after 3 months of playing on the weekends, late during weeknights, after 11 p.m. for the latest, it started to annoy me. And I'm no one to judge, and certainly not a musician, but I really don't like what he plays, and I don't find his voice very good. For the note, I have all insulated glass windows, and yes, I hear him very well when they're all closed. Yesterday, after 9:30 p.m., he was playing and singing as usual, so before I start throwing eggs at his windows, like in my recent dreams, I decided to confront him and ask him to stop the most nicely way possible. After ringing at least 4 or 5 times the bell, he plays really loud, he answers me. A very nice and well-dressed guy opens and I ask him if he is the pianist. He confirms and start telling me about his life and that it's a part of his jobs. He says that we are in a loud neighbor and that it's not that late. He seemed really nice, but I really wanted him to stop playing late every nights. So I panicked, and to justify that he stops his every night solo I told him I had a child, which I don't. He was very nice and apologies, but started asking question, due to my young age, I'm in my mid-20s. He gave me his phone number in case I needed to contact him directly, and told me he would close his windows after 9 p.m. And now I feel bad for the lying part, to a nice guy even more. But there is no more incessant piano solos music in my apartment, so now I need to find a name for my kid in case he asks me the next time I see him. TLDR, my neighbor plays piano loud and late, told him I have a child, I don't, so that he stops. It worked. Story 7. I took money from a fundraiser in elementary school. In elementary school, we got a fundraiser packet and whoever collected the most would win a big prize, and if you hit a certain mark you'd get smaller prizes along the way. I was super into it and would turn it in every time and get small prizes like cool erasers, pencils, coloring books, etc. Well, one year, I opened the pack to count all the money and there was a lot in it. I decided to spend the money instead of turning it in. No one knew since they didn't keep record of who took a packet or who was participating in it. I honestly thought it was way better than the prizes they gave away and spent the money on food and other toys. Now I feel bad about it since the people who donated it didn't know and basically gave me money to go and eat. Now to make up for it I go and volunteer for food shelters. Story 8. I used to steal pizza from the restaurant I worked at in college. I worked at a local pizza place where I went to college as a delivery driver. After a couple months, I went out for a delivery and the customer didn't answer the door. I tried calling the customer and they still didn't answer. My manager said to come back because there was another delivery. At the end of my shift, she said that I could have the pizza if I wanted it. As I ate this pizza with my roommate, I came up with the idea that he could order a pizza right before close and just not answer the door. The next week, he called in an order with our address about 30 minutes before close. I drove there and we smoked a bowl and then I went back. And just like I planned, we got free dinner. We did this several times over the next couple months until I switched jobs. I wouldn't feel bad if it was a big chain like Domino's, but since it was a mom and pop shop I felt bad. Story 9. The conditions were met and I told my parents a kid in my class gave me a black eye. I was a shit kid, I had no discretion and usually just said exactly how I felt or what I thought. I obviously didn't have a lot of friends and it caused a lot of issues for me. This happened during grade school. I was having an argument with a particularly annoying kid. He was the know-it-all type and I found it extremely irritating. I couldn't tell you now what we were talking about, however, during the argument he was waving his hands in my face. At some point his hand made contact with my face, around my eye area. Bingo, it clicks in my head. Keep in mind, he probably barely grazed me. I was absolutely not in any pain, but I saw this as an opportunity. Later, towards the end of the day, I bring a black Crayola marker into the bathroom with me. I used water to dilute the ink that I had rubbed on my finger and wiped it around my eye area. The water made the marker a purplish color, almost spot on to a real black eye. I used just a bit, minor black eye, and went home. Of course it was the first thing my parents noticed when I got home. I ratted the kid out and really played the part. I remember my parents taking pictures of my eye to retain as proof. As the days passed, I emulated the stages of a black eye in the healing process. I honestly don't remember what might have happened to the kid. I just remember being very pleased with myself. Of course, this isn't something I'd ever do now, and this was probably the biggest lie I ever told. Story 10. I forged Good Charlotte's signature for a Nintendo. When I was 8, there was a boy in my 3rd grade class who was obsessed with the band Good Charlotte. He had this blue Nintendo Game Boy that I had been eyeing for a while, and I decided to propose a trade. I told him that I actually knew Benji and Joel Madden, lead singers of the band, and that I had their autographs. I told him I'd trade him the autographs for his Game Boy and he enthusiastically agreed. I went home and spent a good 20 to 30 minutes with my next door neighbor forging their signatures. After we agreed on one, we used her parents' lamination machine to make it really legit. The next day he handed over his Game Boy in return for the fake autographs. A week later my little brother was playing with the Game Boy and dropped it in the bathtub. Welp, karma I guess. Story 11. I told my friends I am sober, but I just smoked again. I actually have tried to stay sober from weed. Before today, I was sober for 4 days. I have smoked/taken edibles almost every day for the last 6 months. The reason I tried to quit was because I felt like it didn't have an effect on me anymore. When I finally tried to stay sober, I literally couldn't sleep for almost 2 of the 4 days. I also felt more aware and nervous too. I don't know if you can get withdrawals from marijuana, but I really didn't expect to feel side effects like this. My online friends haven't seen much of me since I've started smoking weed. I know it might be silly to say online friends, but I feel like it's important to mention that because I don't have any real-life friends. I feel like friendships online are much different from real-life friendships. I feel guilty when I ignore their "Hey, you doing all right? Just checking on you" messages over and over. I don't do it on purpose. I'm just constantly high and either not understandable or nonverbal. And when I am sober, I'm a depressed mess and I feel like it's hard to talk to me. Today I was hanging out with them in a call and I was excited to tell them that I've been trying to stay sober. They were so proud of me. Even if it was just 4 days. And I ruined it tonight. I guess I was just having bad thoughts all afternoon. I won't elaborate on them, but it was enough to where I couldn't stand it anymore. I just don't feel happy sober. Like ever. A month before I started smoking, I had spiraled into a depressive episode. They usually come and go, but I felt like this one wasn't go away. So I started smoking weed. I confessed to my dad that I smoke, but if he knew just how much I did, he would be disappointed. My mom doesn't even know. And now my friends are happy for me, and I feel like I lied to them. I won't ramble anymore, thank you if you took the time to read this. I'm going to go watch the Batman so I can space out and not think of this any longer. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.